Okay, 17. Here we go. Genesis 17. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to Abram and said to him, I am Almighty God. Walk before me and be blameless, and I will make my covenant between me and you, and will multiply you exceedingly. Then Abram fell on his face, and God talked with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with you, and you shall be a father of many nations. No longer shall your name be called Abram, but your name shall be Abraham, for I have made you a father of many nations. I will make you exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of you, and kings shall come from you. And I will establish my covenant between me and you and your descendants after you in their generations for an everlasting covenant, to be God to you and your descendants after you. Also I give to you and your descendants after you the land in which you are a stranger, all the land of Canaan, as an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. Okay, so here you get that promise again. And many nations did come from Abraham. And God said to Abraham, As for you, you shall keep my covenant, you and your descendants after you, throughout their generations. This is my covenant which you shall keep between me and you and your descendants after you. Every male child among you shall be circumcised, and you shall be circumcised in the flesh of your foreskins, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and you. He who is 8 days old among you shall be circumcised, every male child in your generations. He who is born in your house or bought with money from any foreigner who is not your descendant. He who is born in your house and he who is bought with your money must be circumcised, and my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And the uncircumcised male child who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, that person shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. So this is the thing he makes with Abraham, is the circumcision as part of the covenant. So it's just a sign. And this is where that gets instituted. Now, there are a lot of types. So, I mean, of course, that true circumcision is circumcision of the heart. And the Bible talks about that in both the Old and New Testaments. So this would be symbolic of that too. And it's not a bad idea, to get circumcised in the flesh. In the New Testament, it's not a requirement. It has nothing to do with covenants or salvation, but for health reasons, it's a good idea, and that's another thing people can look up on their own. But anyway, there's that. And yeah, so we have covenants here. Okay, then God said to Abraham, As for Sarai, your wife, you shall not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name, and I will bless her and also give you a son by her. Then I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of peoples shall be from her. Now, Sarah means princess, and apparently Abraham meant father of nations. It doesn't say it here, but I've heard that many times, so, All right. Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed and said in his heart, Shall a child be born to a man who is 100 years old? And shall Sarah, who is 90 years old, bear a child? And Abraham said to God, Oh, that Ishmael might live before you. Then God said, "No, Sarah, your wife, shall bear you a son, and you shall call his name Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his descendants after him. And as for Ishmael, I have heard you. Behold, I have blessed him, and will make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. He shall beget 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant I will establish with Isaac, whom Sarah shall bear to you at this set time next year." Then he finished talking with him, and God went up from Abraham. So Abraham took Ishmael his son, all who were born in his house, and all who were bought with his money, every male among the men of Abraham's house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskins that very same day, as God had said to him. Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. Oh, okay. And Ishmael, his son, was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. That very same day, Abraham was circumcised, and his son Ishmael, and all the men of his house, born in the house or bought with money from a foreigner, were circumcised with him. Well, you know what's interesting is Abraham was circumcised here before he and Sarah conceived Isaac. See, so it was like this was a sanctified operation, is what that represents. And the Ishmael thing was before that. Okay, so there is a distinction being made here. And what we see, before I go on, I just want to mention this, is that what happened was a sign of the flesh. Abraham, and Sarah as well, but trusting in the flesh when the whole thing came about with Ishmael. And here with Isaac, it's like he's having faith in God. Like God kept saying it, he would give him a son, but he kind of doubted it and tried to fulfill this in the flesh in different ways. But nope, that's not the way it's going to go. It happens with Isaac, and that's the line of the promise. So it's symbolic in that way. And we see this. So anyway, so that's the deal there. And the seed of Isaac is the line of promise for the Messiah. So that's in there as well. Okay, and I have notes. I'm going to read some more, and then I'll see what notes I have. Then the Lord appeared to him by the terebinth trees of Mamre, as he was sitting in the tent door in the heat of the day. So he lifted his eyes and looked, and behold, okay, now it gets interesting. 3 men were standing by him, and when he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them and bowed himself to the ground and said, "My Lord, if I have now found favor in your sight, do not pass on by your servant. Please let a little water be brought and wash your feet and rest yourselves under the tree, and I will bring a morsel of bread that you may refresh your hearts. After that you may pass by, inasmuch as you have come to your servant." Now what's interesting here is the Lord appeared to him, and it was in the representation of 3 men, right? So there have been a lot of things said on a certain channel on YouTube about different proofs of the Trinity. And this whole Sodom and Gomorrah thing with this thing was one of the greatest arguments I've heard for that, but there are enough places, so I don't want to mention the channel because it's a long story. Anyway, now, they said, "Do as you have said." So Abraham hurried into the tent to Sarah and said, "Quickly, make ready 3 measures of fine meal, knead it, and make cakes." And Abraham ran to the herd, took a tender and good calf, gave it to a young man, and he hastened to prepare it. So he took butter and milk and the calf which he had prepared and set it before them, and he stood by them under the tree as they ate. Then they said to him, "Where is Sarah your wife?" So he said, "Here in the tent." And he said, "I will certainly return to you according to the time of life, and behold, Sarah your wife shall have a son." Sarah was listening in the tent door which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, well advanced in age, and Sarah had passed the age of childbearing. Therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, "After I have grown old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord being old also?" And the Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh, saying, shall I surely bear a child since I am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the appointed time I will return to you according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son." But Sarah denied it, saying, "I did not laugh," for she was afraid. And he said, "No, but you did laugh." Anyway, okay. Then the men rose from there and looked towards Sodom, and Abraham went with them to send them on the way. And the Lord said, "Shall I hide from Abraham what I am doing? Since Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. For I have known him in order that he may command his children and his household after him, that they keep the way of the Lord, to do righteousness and justice, that the Lord may bring to Abraham what he has spoken to him." And the Lord said, "Because the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grave, I will go down now and see whether they have done altogether according to the outcry against it that has come to me, and if not, I will know." Okay, so there's that. Then the men turned away from there and went towards Sodom, but Abraham still stood before the Lord. And Abraham came near and said, "Would you also destroy the righteous with the wicked? Suppose there are 50 righteous within the city. Would you also destroy the place and not spare it for the 50 righteous that were in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing as this, to slay the righteous with the wicked, so that the righteous should be as the wicked. Far be it from you. Shall not the judge of all the earth do right?" So the Lord said, "If I find in Sodom 50 righteous within the city, then I will spare all the place for their sakes." Then Abraham answered and said, "Indeed now, I who am but dust and ashes have taken it upon myself to speak to the Lord. Suppose there were 5 less than the 50 righteous. Would you destroy all of the city for lack of 5? So he said, "If I find there 45, I will not destroy it." And he spoke to him yet again and said, "Suppose there should be 40 found there." So he said, "I will not do it for the sake of 40. Then he said, "Let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak. Suppose 30 should be found there. So he said, I will not do it if I find 30 there. And he said, indeed, now I have taken it upon myself to speak to the Lord. Suppose 20 should be found there. So he said, I will not destroy it for the sake of 20. Then he said, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak but once more. Suppose 10 should be found there. And he said, I will not destroy it for the sake of 10. So the Lord went his way as soon as he had finished speaking with Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place. It's kind of funny. It's like Abraham, I think, is haggling with God about his family members who are over there, and maybe there were just over 10, who knows, but it's just interesting. And I mean, the ones that are there get rescued out, so that's coming up. Okay, 19. Now the two angels came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. When Lot saw them, he rose to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face toward the ground, and he said, Here now, my lords, please turn in to your servant's house and spend the night and wash your feet. Then you may rise early and go on your way. And they said, No, but we will spend the night in the open square. But he insisted strongly. So they turned in to him and entered his house. Then he made them a feast and baked unleavened bread, and they ate. Now before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both old and young, all the people from every quarter surrounded the house, and they called to Lot and said to him, Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us that we may know them carnally. So Lot went out to them through the doorway, shut the door behind him, and said, Please, my brethren, do not do so wickedly. See now, I have 2 daughters who have not known a man. Please let me bring them out to you, and you may do to them as you wish. Only do nothing to these men, since this is the reason they have come under the shadow of my roof. Now, of course, that was not the right thing to do, but you have to remember, Lot is a product of his environment. He's been in that area, and he's obviously been corrupted to some degree by that culture. So, that's why this comes along. And the same thing with the daughters, we'll see shortly. And they said, Stand back. This is how they were, see. Then they said, This one came in to stay here, and he keeps acting as a judge. Does that sound familiar? Now we will deal worse with you than with them. So they pressed hard against the man Lot and came near to break down the door. But the men reached out their hands and pulled Lot into the house with them and shut the door. And they struck the men who were at the doorway of the house with blindness, both small and great, so that they became weary trying to find the door. Wow. Okay. Then the men said to Lot, Have you anyone else here? Son-in-law, your sons, your daughters, and whomever you have in the city. Take them out of this place, for we will destroy this place, because the outcry against them has grown great before the face of the Lord, and the Lord has sent us to destroy it. So Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law, who had married his daughters, and said, Get up, get out of this place, for the Lord will destroy the city." But to his sons-in-law, he seemed to be joking. I mean, this is so typical right here, It's a sinful place. It's like, God's even saying he's going to judge this place. Get your people out of here. It's going to be destroyed. And, excuse me, he tries to warn them with, God's judgment is coming. And they pretty much laugh him to scorn, right? It's the typical scenario. And earlier, it's like, how they were saying, now you came here as an outsider and now you're our judge. It's like, how dare you judge us, even though we're just, overflowing with wickedness. So that's the kind of culture this was. So when the morning dawned, the angels urged Lot to hurry, saying, "Arise, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, lest you be consumed in the punishment of the city." And while he lingered, the men took hold of his hand, his wife's hand, and the hands of his 2 daughters, the Lord being merciful to him, and they brought him out and set him outside the city. So it came to pass, when they had brought them outside, that he said, "Escape for your life. Do not look behind you, nor stay anywhere in the plain. Escape to the mountains, lest you be destroyed." And it's like he was even hesitant. They had to grab him and take him out. And he was probably concerned for the people who didn't listen to him and who didn't believe him, that they would not come. And, well, what can you do? These were the only ones who went. So, all right. Then Lot said to them, "Please, no, my lords, indeed now your servant has found favor in your sight, and you have increased your mercy, which you have shown me by saving my life. But I cannot escape to the mountains, lest some evil overtake me and I die." I mean, oh my goodness. "See now, this city is near enough to flee to, and it is a little one. Please let me escape there. Is it not a little one? And my soul shall live." So I guess he was just too used to the city, I mean, if they're telling him to go to the mountains, I don't think they would suggest that if he couldn't survive there, right? And he said to him, "See, I have favored you concerning this thing also, in that I will not overthrow the city for which you have spoken. Hurry, escape there, for I cannot do anything until you arrive there." Therefore the name of the city was called Zoar. The sun had risen upon the earth when Lot entered Zoar. Then the Lord rained brimstone and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of the heavens. So he overthrew those cities, all the plain, all the inhabitants of the cities, and what grew on the ground. But his wife looked back behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. So this is like wanting to go back into the world, and then this is what happened. So that's symbolic. "And Abraham went early in the morning to the place where he had stood before the Lord. Then he looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah, and toward all the land of the plain, and he saw, and behold, the smoke of the land, which went up like the smoke of a furnace. And it came to pass, when God destroyed the cities of the plain, that God remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow, when he overthrew the cities in which Lot had dwelt. I mean, this sounds a whole lot like a volcanic eruption, you know. So, anyway, just mentioning that. So now, um, then Lot went up out of Zoar and dwelt in the mountains. I guess he was afraid then. And his 2 daughters were with him, for he was afraid to dwell in Zoar. And he and his 2 daughters dwelt in a cave. Now the firstborn said to the younger, Our father is old, and there is no man on the earth to come into us, as is the custom of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve the lineage of our father. So they made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and lay with her father, and he did not know when she lay down or when she arose. It happened on the next day that the firstborn said to the younger, Indeed, I lay with my father last night. Let us make him drink wine tonight also, and you go in and lie with him, that we may preserve the lineage of our father. Then they made their father drink wine that night also, and the younger arose and lay with him, and he did not know when she lay down or when she arose. Thus both the daughters of Lot were with child by their father. The firstborn bore a son and called his name Moab. He is the father of the Moabites to this day. And the younger, she also bore a son and called his name Ben-Ami. He is the father of the people of Ammon to this day. Okay, so I once heard also the Edomites came from this, but anyway, see, this is an example of the corruption. They didn't think anything of it, being in that society, in that culture. So that's what happens, and so that's why they did this. This was not condoned of by God. This is just a sign of their, the influence of that culture on them. So they did this, which you're not supposed to do. And anyway, that's why they did it and how this happened. And then they got those 2 lands, nations that came from that. So that's the deal. Let's see here. Okay, yeah. All right, 20. And Abraham, and I have notes, but I just want to get somewhere first. And Abraham journeyed from there to the south and dwelt between Kadesh and Shur and stayed in Gerar. Now, Abraham said of Sarah his wife, She is my sister, and Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. So he's doing this again. But God came to Abimelech in a dream by night and said to him, Indeed, you are a dead man because of the woman whom you have taken, for she is a man's wife. But Abimelech had not come near her. And he said, Lord, will you slay a righteous nation also? Did he not say to me, She is my sister? And she herself said, He is my brother. In the integrity of my heart and innocence of my hands, I have done this. And God said to him in a dream, Yes, I know that you did this in the integrity of your heart, for I also withheld you from sinning against me. Therefore I did not let you touch her. Now, therefore, restore the man's wife, for he is a prophet, and he will pray for you, and you shall live. But if you do not restore her, know that you shall surely die, and you and all who are yours. So Abimelech rose early in the morning, called all his servants, and told all these things in their hearing. And the men were very much afraid. And Abimelech called Abraham and said to him, "What have you done to us? How have I offended you that you have brought on me and on my kingdom a great sin? You have done deeds to me that ought not to be done." Then Abimelech said to Abraham, "What did you have in view that you have done this thing?" And Abraham said, "Because I thought surely the fear of God is not in this place, and they will kill me on account of my wife. But indeed she is truly my sister. She is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother. And she became my wife. And it came to pass, when God caused me to wander from my father's house, that I said to her, 'This is your kindness that you should do for me in every place. Wherever we go, say of me, he is my brother.'" Then Abimelech took sheep, oxen, and male and female servants, and gave them to Abraham. And he restored Sarah his wife to him. And Abimelech said, "See, my land is before you. Dwell where it pleases you." Then to Sarah he said, "Behold, I have given your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. Indeed, this vindicates you before all who are with you and before everybody." Thus she was rebuked. So Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech, his wife, and his female servants. Then they bore children, for the Lord had closed up all the wombs of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. Okay, so that's all there is there. Now we get to Isaac. And the Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did for Sarah as he had spoken. For Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age, at the set time of which God had spoken to him. And Abraham called the name of his son who was born to him, whom Sarah bore to him, Isaac. Then Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, as God had commanded him. Now Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. And Sarah said, "God has made me laugh, and all who hear will laugh with me." She also said, "Who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? For I have borne him a son in his old age." I think Isaac meant laughter, but I don't remember, and I didn't look it up. Okay, so now Isaac is on the scene. Now we have this little discord here. So the child grew and was weaned. And Abraham made a great feast on the same day that Isaac was weaned. And Sarah, so this takes a few years in that situation, And Sarah, it's like when they're breastfed, which they did this for longer than 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, this went on, it could have been years. So, just as a reference there. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, scoffing. Therefore, she said to Abraham, "Cast out this bondwoman and her son, for the son of this bondwoman shall not be heir with my son, namely with Isaac." And the matter was very displeasing in Abraham's sight because of his son. Okay, now this is the part where it's mentioned in the New Testament, each thing represents something else. So Isaac and his descendants are Jewish, but they represent the Christian church. And Hagar and her descendants are, Egyptian, which is all the land of the Middle East now and Arabia. But that represents the whole thing with the Jewish people. And that's what it says. It's not the people, it's like, what they're doing in a sense of the, under the law and not under the law, like the free woman and the bondwoman. And it's over there in Galatians, so you have to go there and you'll see it. Okay, but God said to Abraham, do not let it be displeasing in your sight because of the lad or because of your bondwoman. Whatever Sarah has said to you, listen to her voice. For in Isaac your seed shall be called. So this is the place where I mentioned this the other day. God actually tells Abraham to submit to what his wife is saying. Okay, listen to her and do what she says. So just wanted to point that out. You never know. Okay, so, all right. Now, and it was time, now that Isaac was on the scene, it was time for Hagar and Ishmael to go their own way. And you can already see the character of Ishmael coming up when he was scoffing. So yeah, it's time, right? Anyway, yet I will also make a nation of the son of the bondwoman, because he is your seed. So Abraham rose early in the morning and took bread and a skin of water, and putting it on her shoulder, he gave it and the boy to Hagar and sent her away. Then she departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba, and the water in the skin was used up. And she placed the boy under one of the shrubs. Then she went and sat down across from him at a distance of about a bow shot, for she said to herself, let me not see the death of the boy. So she sat opposite him and lifted her voice and wept. And God heard the voice of the lad. Then the angel of God called to Hagar out of heaven and said to her, what ails you, Hagar? Fear not, for God has heard the voice of the lad where he is. Arise, lift up the lad, and hold him with your hand, for I will make him a great nation. Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. And she went and filled the skin with water and gave the lad a drink. So God was with the lad, and he grew and dwelt in the wilderness and became an archer. He dwelt in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took a wife for him from the land of Egypt. Okay, now here. And it came to pass at that time that Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, spoke to Abraham, saying, God is with you in all that you do. Now therefore, swear to me by God that you will not deal falsely with me, with my offspring, or with my posterity, but that according to the kindness that I have done to you, you will do to me and to the land in which you have dwelt. And Abraham said, I will swear. Then Abraham rebuked Abimelech because of a well of water which Abimelech's servants had seized. And Abimelech said, I do not know who has done this thing. You did not tell me, nor had I heard of it until today. So Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them to Abimelech, and the two of them made a covenant. And Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock by themselves. Then Abimelech asked Abraham, "What is the meaning of these 7 ewe lambs which you have set by themselves?" And he said, "You will take these 7 ewe lambs from my hand, that they may be my witness that I have dug this well." Therefore he called that place Beersheba, because the 2 of them swore an oath there. Thus they made a covenant at Beersheba. So Abimelech rose with Phicol, the commander of his army, and they returned to the land of the Philistines. Then Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba, and there called on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. And Abraham stayed in the land of the Philistines many days. Okay, now it gets interesting. Now it came to pass after these things that God tested Abraham and said to him, "Abraham." And he said, "Here I am." Then he said, "Take now your son, your only son, Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you." It's interesting, it says only son, and he had another son. So this is symbolic as well. It's all symbolic, so I'll get to this soon. So Abraham rose early in the morning and saddled his donkey and took 2 of his young men with him and Isaac his son, and he split the wood for the burnt offering and arose and went to the place of which God had told him. Then on the 3rd day Abraham lifted his eyes and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said to his young men, "Stay here with the donkey. The lad and I will go yonder and worship, and we will come back to you." So, several things here. He knew this was supposed to be some kind of a sacrifice that would kill him. But he says, "We'll be back." So, in this is hidden his, like the son would have to be resurrected so they could both come back. And not only that, it had to be the case because how else would God make a great nation through Isaac if he's dead? See, so he believed the promise of God to that extent. Okay, if that's what he wants, he'll have to raise him from the dead in order to fulfill his promise to make a great nation out of him. So we have all this in here. And I mean, you can imagine this was a test of faith. Abraham surely loved Isaac, and he waited a long time for Isaac. This is his, wonderful son of promise, and for him to be willing to do this is heavy, right? So we have all this. So this is all a type of Christ. I mean, we have the Father and the Son, the only begotten Son. We have, he doesn't really die in this case, but otherwise it symbolizes the crucifixion and resurrection. We have the sacrifice, it's all in here. So Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it on Isaac his son, and he took the fire in his hand and a knife, and the 2 of them went together. But Isaac spoke to Abraham his father and said, "My father?" And he said, "Here I am, my son." Then he said, "Look, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering?" And Abraham said, "My son, God will provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering." So the 2 of them went together. I mean, it's kind of interesting, this is what happened. God provided for himself a sacrifice, which was himself, okay? And this is all symbolic of that. And Isaac, he's like, when, this comes up, and he's just like, oh, okay, like, if you say so, all right. He's very trusting and innocent, and believes that a lamb will be provided. So it's so interesting. It's a lamb. All right. So then they came to the place of which God had told him, and Abraham built an altar there and placed the wood in order. Okay? And he bound Isaac, his son, and laid him on the altar upon the wood. So, to me, this is like the cross. And Abraham stretched out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. I'm imagining Isaac, what is he thinking? You can see he doesn't protest. He's just probably going along like, well, okay, if that's what my father wants, I trust him. He knows what he's doing, and it is what it is. And he was a willing sacrifice. So I see this in here. It's interesting. But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. So he said, here I am. And this is where it diverts from the type, okay, because, Jesus really did die and rise again. But here, they don't go that far. God is not interested in human sacrifice. Jesus was both fully God and fully man, which is what makes it okay. It was him himself doing it. And that was the only way it could be okay. And there's so many reasons for that. But anyway, so here. And he said, do not lay your hand on the lad or do anything to him, for now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. And neither has God the Father withheld his son, his only son, from us as a sacrifice. It's all over the place in here. Then Abraham lifted his eyes and looked, and there behind him was a ram caught in a thicket by its horns. So Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up for a burnt offering instead of his son. And Abraham called the name of the place, the Lord will provide. As it is said to this day, in the mount of the Lord it shall be provided. And he did, and it was. All of this is a type and prophetic of what happened, and that prophecy was fulfilled. Then the angel of the Lord called to Abraham a second time out of heaven and said, by myself I have sworn, says the Lord, because you have done this thing. He was willing, and have not withheld your son, your only son. Blessing I will bless you, and multiplying I will multiply your descendants as the stars of the heaven and as the sand which is on the seashore, and your descendants shall possess the gate of their enemies. And this is true. Abraham's descendants are millions and millions, and okay. In your seed all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice. And this term in Hebrew is singular, seed, and it refers again to Jesus. So that's how the whole earth is blessed. So Abraham returned to his young men, and they rose and went together to Beersheba, and Abraham dwelt at Beersheba. Okay, now I'll read this little part and then I'll get to the notes. Now it came to pass after these things that it was told Abraham, saying, indeed, Milcah also has borne children to your brother Nahor. Huz his firstborn, Buz his brother, Kemuel the father of Aram, Chesed, Hazo, Pildash, Jidlaph, and Bethuel. And Bethuel begot Rebekah. These 8 Milcah bore to Nahor, Abraham's brother. His concubine, whose name was Reumah, also bore Teba, Gaham, Thahash, and Macha. Okay, and that's where this chapter 22 ends. Now let me get the notes here. So, okay, again, in 17, verse 19, in 21, verse 12, and we have the line of the seed of Isaac, well, the lineage of Isaac being the chosen line of the Messiah. The seed, that's called, that's the Messiah comes through this line, it's prophesied. Then all that stuff about the blessing through that and everything. Then we have in 22, verse 8, the Lamb of God promised. So there's a type of that. And then in verse 18, as Isaac's seed will bless all nations, and the seed being Christ. So I mentioned that. Okay, and then in 26, I know I didn't get there yet, but the seed of Isaac promised as the line of the Redeemer. So we'll get there. And in 28, verse 14, we have it as the seed of Jacob. So it runs through that line. The Messiah's line is said to be that line. So that shows up in here. Now, let me get to this part here. We have types. So we have, okay, I'll go over this page. Okay, this page and then something. There's more, but here, I gotta zoom out here. Hold on. Okay, now Sodom and Gomorrah is, of course, a type of the end. And we see sin, wickedness. Maybe I should make this even smaller. Sin, wickedness, sexual perversion abound. The people did not heed the warnings, scoffed at the prophecies of coming judgment. A remnant was spared and rescued. Remnant grabbed and removed and told to flee and hide in mountains and caves. So this is a type of like 144,000. And then some say, the church and the rapture as well. So I could see all that in there. Remnant told not to look back. And then after they escaped, fire and brimstone fell from heaven and destroyed the cities. This is all a type of the end. Okay, and then in here we have, I'm going to have to go through this here. Okay, this will be interesting, but that's going to be another day. Okay, here we have this one. We have the 3 of them, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, are a type of the Trinity, Father, Son, and, Holy Spirit. Then, okay, now this part is going to be regarding Rebecca, so that's coming up tomorrow. Sarah is a type of Israel, which is like the bride of the Father, bears Messiah in old age and is unbelieving. Same thing as Israel. It took a long time. Okay. Okay, this part comes later. I have this spread out, so I have to run around back and forth in here. Let's see. Some of this is for tomorrow. here's another one. Types. Okay, I mentioned Adam, I mentioned Noah, Abel, Job, types of Christ, okay? Isaac, we have long-awaited son, miracle birth, child of promise, sacrifice, and rose, symbolized in that, because it was a miracle birth, because, Sarah was already beyond the age of childbearing, so this was a miracle. And there are other miracle births that come up in the Old Testament that are also a type of the birth of Christ, but that's the ultimate miracle because she was a virgin. So anyway, that's coming up. Okay, these are for later, and that's it for now. Okay, all right, good. The rest is for tomorrow. All right, so this is almost an hour, so that's all right. Okay, I'll be back tomorrow, and we get to Isaac and Rebecca. Have a blessed night.